If we can go to the next slide. And as I mentioned earlier, my name is Caroline Mays. I'm with the Texas Department of Transportation, and I want to welcome you to the public meeting for the Ports to Plains Feasibility Study. Some of you might have attended a meeting with us either in Laredo, Del Rio last year. So this is the third set of public meeting in the lower part of the Ports to Plains corridor. A couple of housekeeping things. Please ensure that your phone and your computer microphones are muted. If you call just with your phone, please type your name on the chat box so we can know that you're here and acknowledge your presence. If you log in with both your computer and your phone, please mute your computer, otherwise it will echo a lot. And then to minimize background noise, please just make sure that your device right now, everybody should be muted. If you're not muted, please go ahead and mute yourself. We don't want to hear all of your conversations in the background. And again, to share a comment or ask a question, you may add it to the Dropbox, but later on, the chat box, but then also later on, we'll open the lines once the formal presentation is done for you all to provide formal feedback. So next slide. The purpose of the meeting today, as you can see from here, is to provide you all with the opportunity to not just learn about the Ports to Plains Corridor Feasibility. I think a lot of you that I've seen here have been part of that, but really the key here is to provide you with the preliminary recommendations of Segment 3 Committee and provide you with the opportunity to provide comments on the preliminary recommendations as outlined here. The presentation, as I mentioned, will be both audio and visual components, and this will all be in English. We're not providing any translations here, so apologize for anybody that's needing translation. It will be recorded and it will be made available through Tuesday, May 26th, where that's when the public comment period will end. All the materials that we'll share with you today is available on our website, indicated here. And then, like I mentioned, all comments, public comments must be received on or before Tuesday, May 26th. That's about 2 weeks from today. And this will be provided, your comments will be provided to the Segment 3 committee members, and for your feedback and for them to consider in their final recommendations. Next slide. So here is where you can provide written comments. Besides giving your input today, you can send us written comments, and their addresses here. You can send by email, portstoplains@TxDOT.gov, or by actual written mail to Texas Department of Transportation, call Ports to Plains Study Team at 5835 Culligan Road, Suite 200, that's San Antonio, Texas 78228. You can also provide your comments online. We have the link provided here. And then you may also call if you feel to do so. The phone number is 512-486-5106 to ask questions about the project and provide any comments. But we want to underscore that we can only take comments verbally today. So after today, any of your comments to be considered have to be in writing, either via email or online or by mail. Next slide. So before I go into details here, this is what we're going to cover today. We'll provide an overview of kind of where we've come with the Ports to Plains study, and then also give you a feasibility study overview, and then provide you with the segment recommendation. But before we go into the actual agenda items, I see Mayor Science on the line. Mayor Science, welcome, and I want to give you, a few minutes to say any words of welcome and anything you would like to share with the group.
Yes, good afternoon, Carolyn, of course, the entire group, whoever's participating. Thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, this has been an ongoing process, as we know, Caroline, for most of us here. But then again, the public has an opportunity to provide public comments, and this would be a juncture. And of course, we have until the 26th of May to provide any type of comment that the public may have regarding this proposed route. This is this is an important event today and what follows. Because this is the route that most of us, have been asking for, and hopefully one day soon we can get it. Ports to plains, the words themselves describe it. It's the ports between Mexico and of course the U.S. Here on the South Texas border, primarily Laredo and Del Rio and of course Eagle Pass going west. And that's a route that can save and alleviate congestion in our city on 35, and of course deviate that traffic to where it should be going. Any type of destination toward the western part of Texas, and of course the western part of the U.S. as well, and of course Canada ultimately. So thank you, Caroline, for the opportunity, and I look forward to the conversations here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. I know we have quite a few people on the line here, but for the benefit of the group, we're gonna give a few minutes for people to just introduce yourself and just state what organization you represent. If you represent yourself, please do so. And Steve, I'll kind of let you go down the line, starting with the top.
Yeah, see that I'm first. I'll go first. Akila Tamlarasan with TxDOT.
We'll have Amber. Amber, can you hear us? Steve, you might want to unmute everybody at this point. Let's see how that works.
Hi, you've got Amber Conrad with Rio Grande Electric.
Okay. Amy? Okay. Atul? Okay, I think Atul might be, I don't see that you're muted. We can go to the next one. Bill?
Bill Hasbrook with Kleinfelder.
Okay, welcome. Caller number 2. We have caller number 2 and caller number 6.
This is Steve Linhart. I'm caller number 2 with the Texas Department of Transportation.
Who's caller number 6? Okay. We'll go to County of Dimmitt Commissioner, Precinct 2.
Present.
Okay, it looks like they're not available. We'll go to the next person online.
Dhruva Laham with Kimley Horn and Associates.
Okay, thank you. And Hugo?
I am here, Hugo Sinsun, PCI.
Okay. Go to Jemana. If not, we'll go to Jay Luna.
Jaleesa Luna with Rio Grande Electric.
Okay. Joe?
Joe Bryan with WSP with the party team.
Okay. Joe Kiley?
Joe Kiley with Ports to Plains Alliance.
Okay. John?
John Hetzel with Garver.
Okay. Julia? Julia Jerome? Okay, we will go to Karen. Okay, if not, let's go to Lance.
This is Lance Winmus with Lower Colorado River Authority.
Okay. Larry? Somebody with an email. Amarillo. Loretta Brown. Pardon me? Okay. Loretta?
Yes, Loretta Brown, TxDOT, Caroline. Hello.
Hello. Margarita? Matt? You already had Mayor Sines. Michael Pennick?
Hi, this is Michael Pennick with the TxDOT team.
Okay. Michael Sexton?
Yes, I'm right here.
Okay, you gotta say your name and your organization. Norma? Oliver? Rachel?
Rachel Lunsford, TxDOT team.
Robert?
Ryan on the TxDOT consultant team.
Ruben?
Because you've got your grandma who's older, your brother's got his medical stuff, and that things are still
Sean?
looking different for you than they do for other people.
Tracy? And Wendy?
Wendy Travis, TxDOT consultant team.
Okay. I think that's everybody. Steve, can you go ahead and mute everybody, and then I'll unmute myself.
Yes, let me reset. Thanks.
Yeah. There's a lot of background noise. Okay. So we can go back to the slides. So as you can see here, the first item on the agenda is an overview of HB 1079. This is the House bill that created the study. And then we'll talk about the feasibility study overview itself, and then we'll discuss the segment 3 recommendations. Next slide. So just quickly, overview of HB 1079. The bill was signed by the governor last year, and it charges TxDOT to conduct a comprehensive feasibility study of the Port-au Plains corridor. And then the study must evaluate the feasibility of and cost and logistical matters associated with improvement to the corridor that creates continuous flow, 4-lane divided highway that meets interstate standards to the extent possible. Next slide. So as part of the bill, the several requirements. One is the creation of an advisory committee, and the advisory committee was created back in October, was their first meeting. And then also the advisory committee, in conjunction with TxDOT, created 3 segment committees, and those committees have been meeting, since, November of last year. Next slide. And this slide really wanted to show you all the process we've been taking to conduct the study. And this is really showing you the top line is the advisory committee. The advisory committee has met twice so far. They met in October and they met in February. Their next meeting would not occur until the segment committees have submitted their report. That will occur in July. And as you can see, their timeline to complete their report is October of 2020. And then the next blocks is the segment committee meetings. And the committee has met so far 4 times. Their meetings for segment 1, they met earlier today, and they have additional meeting in June with the goal to finalize their report to be submitted to the advisory committee by June, no later than June 30th, as you see in the bottom. And the bottom kind of shows you the timeline. The advisory committee, once they get the segment committee reports on or before June 30th, they'll have to turn around and develop the advisory committee recommendations due to TxDOT by October 31st. And then TxDOT will turn around and submit the report to the governor and the legislators on January 1st of 2021. Next slide. So here, in terms of the public meetings, the bill requires us to hold quarterly public meetings in a rotational basis between the different cities outlined in the bill. We've actually gone above and beyond that. In just segment 3, we have held, this is the 3rd public meeting we're holding. We've held public meetings in San Angelo as well as in Amarillo. So this kind of just shows you where we've held the meetings, and we're doing this virtually. The other meetings we held for segment 3 was in person. Next slide. So, and why is it important for you to be here today, to join us today? Really is for you to your participation gives us the opportunity and gives you all the opportunity to provide input to the preliminary recommendations as something you've not seen, and this also provide input to the segment committee as they refine and finalize their recommendations. So that's really the key here. What we're looking for you today, kind of the outcome today is, the projects from your vantage point, what should go into short, medium, or long term, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So just keep this in mind as we get to that discussion. Next. So the next couple of slides are going to be a little bit fast. This is just giving you an overview of the feasibility study itself. Some of this we'll discuss with you for those of you that have attended meetings with us over the last couple of months. Next slide. So this here just shows you the process of, that we went through to conduct the feasibility study, from really starting from the beginning, the need and purpose, the goals, to where we are today on the preliminary recommendations, and then, and the final recommendations, implementation plan, and the actual final committee report. Next slide. Here is a map of the corridor on your left-hand side, and then the segment on your right-hand side. As you can see, segment 3, where you all are, is the bottom portion. It's the blue piece. That's what the segment 3 is responsible for. Then you have segment 2 and segment 1. All of the committees will segment committees will provide their report to the advisory committee, who will turn it around and create an entire corridor report. Next slide. Just a quick refresh. The segment 3 portion has 247 miles, 6 counties, 3 port of entries or border crossing, and 2 TxDOT districts will have San Angelo and Laredo. Major cities, we got Laredo, Carrizo Springs, Eagle Pass, Del Rio. And certainly portions of this corridor touches I-35, US 83, and US 77. Next slide. And in terms of some of the analysis we did, and some of you have seen this, the population of the segment is projected to grow substantially between now and 2050, 11% increase. Average median household income is also projected to grow within this corridor, an increase of about 116%. That's significant. And then employment is projected to grow again in this segment of the corridor, 15% increase from 2020 to 2050. One, because of you got the border crossings in Laredo, major international trade gateway. You got Eagle Pass, you got Del Rio. Both are, major trade gateways within the southern portion of this, and also across in the Mexican side, you have growing population centers as well. Next slide. In terms of traffic volumes, we looked at the traffic volumes on the corridor in this segment. You're looking at about 9,400 vehicles a day using this corridor, and then average truck volumes, 1,800 trucks per day, and that's projected to grow. As you can see from the growth numbers, trucks are going to grow by 117%. That's staggering. And as I mentioned, this part of the corridor is very international trade heavy, so you see a lot of trucks, but even just passenger vehicles are projected to grow by 91%. Next slide. And in one of the things we heard a lot in the previous meetings was the safety issues in the corridor and in this segment. Between 2014 and 2018, there were, over 4,300 total crashes with 49 fatalities. So certainly when you look at that, there are safety issues, and we'll talk a little bit about later when you really look at the recommendations. Some of the recommendations will touch on the safety improvements and the needs. Next slide. In terms of total freight tonnage in this corridor and this segment, freight is expected and projected to grow by 139%. And again, this is the fastest in the corridor I mentioned earlier. This part of the corridor, you have international trade gateways of Laredo, Del Rio, and Eagle Pass. Again, looking at that propelling the growth, but you see growth in energy sector, agriculture, following to the international trade. Next. And another analysis we did was to look at the feasibility of interstate. This corridor right now is not an interstate. On this portion of the corridor is primarily a two-lane highway. So what we did was we did an analysis based on data. What if this was an interstate corridor? What would it look like? Mayor Sanz mentioned relieving traffic congestion on I-35, and certainly, if this corridor, according to the data analysis that we conducted, if this corridor was improved to interstate, that means that will add 75% new lane miles over the baseline, which is currently what's today, and we're expecting traffic to grow by 43% over what it is today. And then you see some diversions from some of the corridors like US 57, US 90 in Del Rio. And the benefit of the interstate is really that, one, you address some of the safety issues, because right now you have a lot of curb cuts, you have a lot of stop and go, and you have a two-lane roadway in most cases, undivided. So definitely, and also improve congestion in most parts of the corridor. Next slide. Okay. So in terms of the safety and mobility, I mentioned earlier, with the interstate compared to, let's say, a 4-lane roadway or 2-lane undivided roadway, certainly on interstate, we're expecting that it will reduce crashes by 29% over current conditions. That's what baseline means. And then also the interstate would improve, travel time savings within the corridor by almost 39 minutes over current within just the segment 3 portion. Next slide. In terms of the freight movement, again, this portion of the corridor is very freight heavy, so we're looking at increase in truck traffic today of 44% over today's numbers by 2050. This is, again, with or without interstate. And many truck traffic will be diverted from I-35 as Mayor Sines mentioned, those that are going west, they don't have to go on I-35 to San Antonio, then turn on I-10 or take other corridors. So this will be a way to improve, access to not just Port of Laredo, but also Del Rio and Eagle Pass, if you can have an interstate going from Laredo all the way to I-10. Next slide. Okay, so in terms of the energy products, again, lower portion of the corridor, you have Eagle Ford Shale. The northern part of the corridor, you have the Permian. So you see significant growth in the energy sector still. I know right now it might not seem like it, but you normally go through the ups and downs of energy sector. So you're going to see significant growth, and that will impact, the movement of trucks. And we're showing here, 132% growth in freight tonnage above today. Next slide, Steve. And then one of the other elements of what this segment committee has done is to develop a cost estimate for the improvement, the recommendations we'll talk about later. How much will it cost to improve this corridor to interstate level? And here, what you see on your left-hand side is the cost estimate for just segment 3, where you see we have the total miles that would be improved to interstate standards and the cost of actual construction, right-of-way and utilities at $6.699 billion. And again, this is a planning level cost estimate, today's cost estimate, high level, and this is subject to change when we get to actual project development. So again, very high level at this point. And then for the corridor wide, it's what you see on your right-hand side with 23 billion, $23.516 billion. And again, we're looking at an 811-mile corridor. So just kind of think about, yes, it sounds really big, but think about an 811-mile corridor. Next slide. And in terms of economic analysis and economic benefit of the corridor, if the corridor is built, you see here that the travel cost savings would be a staggering $4.79 billion, and that's over 20 years of travel time saving and cost reductions, and total increase in GDP is about $2.84 billion. And then in terms of employment, the benefits you see is about 22,000 jobs that will be attracted to this corridor as an interstate. And you're looking at, as I mentioned earlier, you saw the $23.5 billion. The return on investment in that is about $18 billion and 76% return on investment with a benefit cost ratio of about 2.8. Next slide. So the next discussion we're going to have, and here is where we need your input today, is really walk through the segment committee recommendations. Next slide, Steve. So over the last maybe several weeks, the segment committees have been working on developing the recommendations. They actually met today and discussed some of these recommendations again. And there are 3 buckets of recommendations. There's recommendations that target upgrading the existing corridors to interstate. And the second one is studies that would look at relief routes around towns along the corridor within the segment, and then I mentioned earlier safety and operational improvement projects. Next slide. So the first set of projects is the interstate upgrade, and this is not in a list. It's not by priority by any means. This is just the improvement that the committee is recommending. And, the first one is, pretty much from I-10 to Del Rio, upgrade that to interstate standards. And then the second piece would be Del Rio to Eagle Pass, again, upgrading that to interstate standards. And the next one is Eagle Pass to Catarina, and that one upgrading that to interstate as well. And then Catarina to I-35, upgrading those to interstate standards. So that's what's being recommended by segment 3 in terms of upgrading the corridor to interstate. Next slide. This is what the committee has identified as relief routes that need to be studied. So the ones in lighter yellow are the ones that need to be studied. And then the one in a little bit darker gold, orange color is one that's already kind of underway. So as you can see, there's several relief routes proposed by the segment committee members. And we'll like to hear your input on that. Next slide, Steve. And then the last set of recommendations I mentioned earlier, some of you probably raised this safety and operational needs or improvements during the public meeting. So you see we have a little bit of a longer list here of safety and operational improvements, regardless of whether this corridor becomes an interstate tomorrow. These are some of the safety improvements, issues, and challenges that and you all are experiencing on the corridor today. So we capture that here, and this has been vetted with the advisory segment committee members, and that will also be included in their recommendations. Next slide. So we'll spend the rest of the meeting, going through your comments, and if you'd like us to go back and pull any of the slides so you can be able to see, certainly we will entertain verbal questions and comments. Unmute your device and any written comments as well, but also you can type comments in the chat box. So Steve, and if you like to speak, just unmute your line and speak. Or if you're technology savvy, you can raise your hand, and then Steve can unmute your line. So any questions from the audience? Okay. I see a question from Art. He said to relieve traffic from I-35 ports to Plains should start at International Trade Center, Industrial Park, Laredo, Texas, FM 1472 to Eagle Pass, Texas, and Del Rio. So what the study is covering, the corridor that is identified as ports to Plains corridor, and that's in the it's identified in the Texas Administrative Code. So that right now in Laredo includes portions of I-35, in Laredo.
Yeah, Carolyn, this is Mayor Science. Can I?
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think on prior committee meetings, you all, or at least TxDOT, was willing to consider relief route study from Laredo to Eagle Pass by expanding F-1572. So I don't know if that got onto some of the suggested study where you pronounce them as. So that Yeah, I just want to make sure, and I think Joe Kiley is also very much aware of this, so he can speak to that as well. Thank you.
Yeah, and then Mayor, that was definitely brought up, but the challenge is we're sticking with what's identified in the House bill, whereby we have to stay kind of within the footprint of what's in the administrative code. So that's kind of why you don't see that on here, because that's not part of what is identified as the Ports to Plains corridor.
Okay, well, that's understandable, but is there going to be, opportunities where we can express the same request future, do you think, or this is basically it, I guess? Here, it probably won't be seen later on. Yeah, thank you, Karen. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Yeah, Mayor, certainly, that's what you as you're a member of the segment committee, certainly you all can have that discussion. And the meeting today, Mayor Lozano is going to be working with the committee to refine some of the recommendations. So certainly I think you can bring those during you all's subcommittee meetings. But I know the discussions, yeah.
Fine, thank you, Caroline. Yeah, we'll get together with the mayor and Kylie. Thank you.
Caroline, this is Joe Kiley. I believe that already in the other recommendations that are policy recommendations, not specific to this corridor, that future study of that type of a connection is in the report in chapter 6.
Okay. Okay, so that's good to know.
Thank you, Joe.
Any other comments? Steve, maybe you can go back to the interstate recommendations. And one of the things we want to get from you too is kind of priority, kind of not necessarily ranking, but from your point of view, when you look at this list, we have 4 different segments that is being proposed here as potential project termini or logical areas. So I want to hear from you all what your thoughts are on these. No comments? How about the release routes? No? If you would like to speak, you please just unmute your line. I think it's star 6 to unmute your line if you'd like to speak. And again, you can also type your comments in the chat box. Okay, looks like everybody agrees. Any other comments on either or any of these recommendations? Steve, you can go to the safety and operational. And then comment here. Steve, maybe just unmute. Unmute everybody and see in case people are having problems unmuting themselves. Okay. So everybody's kind of unmuted now. So if you have any comments you'd like to share, because I know sometimes it's hard for people to unmute themselves. Any comments from anybody?
Thing. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of information on it. Here's your medication. This is how we fix it. I think that's one of the hardest things whenever you have something that's kind of in the mental health field, that it isn't one size fits all, and it is like, here, take this magical pill, and everything's better. It's something that you're like, oh my gosh.
It seems like we don't have any other comments, so you can mute the lines back.
Okay. I'll go back to the presentation. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So you can, I think, again, since we don't have any other comments, just a reminder, we're looking for your feedback for this segment committee preliminary recommendations, and all comments must be received on or before May 26th to be considered. And there's several ways to send us comments. You can go online and complete your comment form, or you can print it and fill it out and mail it to us, or you can just, again, log on to TxDOT.gov and you'll be able to provide feedback there as well, or just, again, call. But like I mentioned, we cannot take verbal comments. It has to be written as well. But if you have any questions on how to provide us feedback, please feel free to call the number you see on the screen. Okay, that's it, Steve. Yep. So I'd like to thank everybody for your time today. I know we're ending a little bit earlier, but I appreciate everybody joining in this afternoon. And again, appreciate you being here. Please send us any of your comments that you may have, and we will be holding 2 more public meetings this week. We have segment 2 on Wednesday, same time, and then segment 1 on Thursday, same time for those segments as well. So just thank you for being here, and you have a great and safe afternoon.